Hey, what's going on, everybody? AJ Shulo here, going to give you guys a free main event breakdown for UFC Vegas 35, headlined by Giga Chikadze and Edson Barboza. Before getting into the breakdown, I'd like to let you guys know I'm the proud partnering with Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the sponsor of AJMMABetting.com. You could use promo code AJMMA to receive 100% instant deposit bonus for up to $100 on your initial deposit. Prize Picks, happy to be working with them, and they've got a lot of very cool stuff in the works, and they've already established themselves as a very credible site. So excited to be working with them, thrilled to be. They're one of many entities that I'm proud to be working with, and many good things to come. So getting into this matchup here, we do have Barboza versus Chikadze. It is a fight that features two kickboxers, two fighters that excel as kickboxers. Both have shown susceptibility to the grappling in the past. However, their takedown defense is generally solid. Barboza has 78% takedown defense, holds up brown belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It usually takes you to be a great wrestler to really ground Barboza and inflict a lot of damage on him and perhaps finish the fight there, a la Khabib Nurmagomedov and Kevin Lee. Obviously, when Barboza had a step down in competition against Makwan Amerikani as a wrestler, Makwan, a solid wrestler in his own right, he had far less success not only taking Barboza down, but controlling him on the ground than, say, these other opponents do that we talked about there. So Barboza, he's a very underrated defensive grappler, even though that's been a culprit to some of his losses. And Chikadze, kind of a similar deal. You know, on the Contender Series, he looked rather bad defending takedowns and fighting off of his back there, got finished. In his Contender Series fight is a big favorite. However, since then, he's improved immensely, and I have to attribute that to the credit or the work that he's been doing King's MMA with fighters like Benito Dariush, Kelvin Gastelum, and Marvin Vittoria. All three of those fighters that I just named hold a high pedigree in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I'm not ready to say that, you know, Chikadze can't be taken down or he's an elite level defensive grappler, but he's far improved from what he's shown. And more importantly, though, this fight should be won or lost standing because, again, that's where both guys prefer to fight, and neither guy is that willing to pursue takedowns. I think that Barboza is the better pure grappler, but again, it may not matter here because I think the difference maker lies on the feet. Getting into Barboza, I think that his drop down to featherweight has been rather interesting. It almost reminds me of Jose Aldo's recent drop down in weight to bantamweight. It seems as though at one point in time, you know, there was maybe some apparent regression with Barboza, you know, coming off the Justin Gaethje knockout loss. And then, you know, he was competitive in the Paul Felder fight, but that was a fight that he won prior to then, years beforehand. And now that it seems like the arrow is pointing the wrong way. However, since moving down to featherweight, he has done very well for himself. I know he lost a split decision there on paper to Danny Ige, but that was a very competitive fight. One you could argue he won. In the following two fights, as we touched on, he beat Makwan Amerikani, and then he's coming off a very impressive knockout win over Shane Burgos there. So I'm not ready to say that Barboza is going to go on some title run anytime soon. It at least shows me that he has, you know, enough left in the tank to really be competitive, even for as great as this weight class is, right? Despite, you know, being, you know, seemingly closer to the end of his career, right? It's not to say that he's completely shot, but there's certainly a case to be made that he's not in his prime anymore. Whereas on the other side here, we have Giga Chikadze, who is far less experienced than Barboza. He just has so fewer fight miles on him. Has not been competing in MMA nearly as long as Barboza. Chikadze comes from a glory kickboxing background. That's his bread and butter. He's been doing striking ever since he was a young kid, and that's where he wins fights. You know, he wins fights by being a great technical striker. He has good variety. He has excellent distance management. And he has his patented Giga kick, which is basically a very precise body kick that does damage to the opposition. He's coming off of a first-round stoppage win against Cub Swanson. So Giga is a guy that has, with less fight miles on him, comes less damage taken. Giga certainly, in my opinion, has the durability edge just based on the fact that he's taken, you know, absorbed less damage throughout his career. Whereas Barboza, as we mentioned beforehand, he came off of 2 beatings against Kevin Lee and Khabib Nurmagomedov. And I know that was a while ago. However, it still is damage taken that adds up over a period of time. You know, even in his last fight against Shane Burgos, he absorbed 80 significant strikes. I mean, don't get me wrong, that was a good performance by Barboza and everything like that. But I am still thinking about the durability in the back of my mind. You know, guys like Justin Gaethje and Donald Cerrone have been able to hurt him in the past. Giga, not a huge power threat with his hands, but similar to a guy like Israel Adesanya and Stephen Thompson, just very precise, especially with his counters. He could hit you just basically in the right spot, and that could alone lead to a knockout. It's not as if he hits the speedometer bag at the UFC PI, and he, basically blows the doors off of the record there. No, it's just he's such a sniper is Giga, as is Barboza. And so I think this will just be a very technical, high-level fight that is contested on the feet that could very easily get extended here. Again, I am still cautious about the durability of Barboza, but he has still generally shown to be durable over the vast majority of his career. Now, in the stand-up, I know that there's a lot to uncover here in terms of the cardio. I actually think that neither has straight-up bad cardio. I think that when they have slowed down in the past, it's more so been against opposition that has want to grapple them with urgency. Most notably Giga Chikadze against Brandon Davis, against Jamal Emmers. He got tired after a grappling onslaught. But as we discussed at the beginning of this video, neither guy should have to really worry about the other's grappling here. It shouldn't really be a threat. It's not to say that they can't slow down or can't fatigue, but I just don't think it's as likely here due to the fact that they shouldn't have to grapple defensively a whole lot. And even in striking exchanges, they still have slowed down from their respective styles alone without even defending takedowns. So I don't really give either guy a massive cardio edge. Edson Barboza slowed down against Dan Hooker in a fight that was primarily striking. It's because Barboza just does a lot of high amplitude type strikes. He does a lot of spinning attacks, and that naturally tires your gas tank out as the fight goes on. You're just doing a lot of explosive techniques that is just not optimal for managing your cardio. And as a result, as the fight goes on, you just fatigue more and more. And especially if you're fighting at a high pace, like Barboza typically likes to fight at. Chikadze is much more methodical. He wants to just basically stick and move on the outside, switch stances, just kind of read you as the fight goes on, time counters upon entry, and then just kind of methodically pick you apart on the outside, where Barboza is just much more aggressive with his style, throws a bit harder, I'd say, with his kicks in his hands. I know that Barboza is typically classified as a kicker, but I actually think he's a very, very underrated boxer. I think he actually has the boxing advantage here. I just think his hands are sharper and his pocket defense is better than Chikadze, who, for his striking defense, mainly relies on his range management. If you actually watch guys when they actually do get in the pocket on him and they don't get countered by Chikadze, he doesn't do the best job moving his head off the center line, and he tends to keep his hands low. So the boxing exchanges should favor Barboza. I think he's just better there. He can maybe box Chikadze up. I want to predict him to knock Chikadze out. Chikadze hasn't been knocked out in his pro MMA career. But that said, the case is to be made that Barboza is the hardest hitter that Chikadze has faced. So if there is a fight where Chikadze gets hurt, it would be a fight like this. Either guy, in theory, could have success landing body kicks on one another. I do think that Barboza would be the party more likely to have success at that because he's more willing to throw them. He throws them harder and just with more frequency. Barboza has some of the best leg kicks in the business that could hinder the mobility of Chikadze as the fight kind of wears on. And that could help him just, win a decision, if not a stoppage late, by just really slowing down Giga, making him more hittable, and then winning that fight as it goes on here. So that's sort of the dynamic. It's just they're both excellent technically. I think Chikadze has the durability advantage. Certainly he is a fighter that's more likely to make improvements on a fight-to-fight basis. Is a fighter that's just much younger in his career. But Barboza, I have to favor him here because not only does he fight at a higher pace, not only do I think he has the better boxing, but he's also the much more proven fighter, right? Just in general, in the grand scheme of things, just fought many more times, beaten the higher level of opposition has Barboza throughout the course of his UFC career. I know provenness isn't everything in a matchup, but it does, I think, help the win equity to some extent. Obviously, we've seen fighters that are prospects when they get the step up in competition, they pass it in flying colors. And this is certainly a case where it can happen. However, tape suggests that this is a bit too big of a step up for Barboza. For Chikadze. I know that Chikadze is coming off an impressive win against Cub Swanson. However, I would have liked to see that fight play out for a bit more because there's only so much for me to take away from a first round knockout there, from a body shot of all things. So again, I'm not putting it past Chikadze to hurt Barboza, but should this fight get extended, I think it'll be a tough go for him just due to the pace, better boxing, and just due to the fact that Barboza has been there and done that so many more times against higher level fighters. So official prediction is going to be Edson Barboza. I think he gets it done by decision. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I have 4 bets posted for this event. I have all of my written content, premium content posted. That includes written breakdowns for the entire card, as well as a premium podcast where I go over every single card every single fight on the card, as well as my prize pick selections for this upcoming PFL slate on Friday. I have a bet posted for that as well. And yeah, really looking forward to this. Good time to be a fight fan. This is PFL on Friday. Then we've got UFC on Saturday. And then we've got just UFC, no Bellator, no PFL next week. So that will be where my sole focus is in the next 7 days or so. So I appreciate you guys. Hit the thumbs up if you like this content. Please feel free to subscribe. And I wish you guys nothing but the best. Cheers to success.